Well, good evening, guys. Good evening, and welcome to the UK Watch Community Channel. And thank you very much for joining us on this Monday evening. And as you can see, I've got Red Shovel joining us on the panel tonight, and our very, very special guest, Jan Sonowoski. So, Jan, thank you so much for joining us tonight and taking the time to spend it with us this Monday evening. I know you're a very busy person, but thank you so much. Guys, before we go on, we usually do a wristwatch check. Yeah, and I don't know if you're not wearing a watch, it doesn't matter. If you are, okay, mate. So we just want to quickly go through. I'll just quickly show you mine. I'm just going to, guys, I've just got my G-Shock on tonight. I'll just give it out, get it out the mothballs, and just give it a run out. Red, I don't know what you're wearing tonight. If you
still wearing the Studio Underdog, that was the
Underdog
that was bought at the British Watchmakers show there.
Yeah, very, very nice. Lovely, lovely. And Jan, you are wearing?
I'm wearing one of my watches. This is actually the only one in existence right now. It's been hand painted by my wife.
Wow, absolutely amazing. And is that sorry, is that the dial from your very first White Duid?
Yes, so this was one of the prototype dials for the Derwydd, which I've sterilized slightly. So I've removed the numerals on the outside, leaving just the seconds hand. And I decided to ask my wife to paint me some flowers for the Welsh National Day, St. David's Day. There was only ever meant to be a one of one. The colors are showing really well on the camera. The flowers are yellow, but it looks like we'll be making some after all. So this is a accidental prototype.
So as people approached you for that particular watch, although it was just a prototype?
Yes, and to be honest with you, it was very unexpected. We wanted to just kind of create this watch just as a, as basically as an Instagram post, just to show everyone how we're celebrating St. David's Day. And we've had so much interest that we've actually decided to order some dials and sell some of these.
Wow! Congratulations!
Thank you very much.
So, guys, I just want to quickly go through the chat. As you know, when I get the show ready and send it out on YouTube, you guys always are there, quick on the draw. And I just wanted to say 4CDs JMB, Tim G, who's in Morocco, I believe, at the moment. Enjoy your vacation, Tim. Dave F451, Kaloy, Marco, Ian B, Dean, Dingo Dave, Ray. Obviously, Red Shovel, who's in the chat, Matt H, Elmo, the Wrist Chick. Guys, let me just quickly see Nord, James the Advisor. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. As I say, we've got a very special guest with us, Jan Sonowoski. And Jan, can I ask you, if you wouldn't mind, please, pronouncing the name of your watch brand? Because I am not going to attempt it, my friend.
My watch brand is a bit of a tongue twister. It's a word that we created for watchmaking in Welsh, just because there wasn't one. There wasn't a word for watchmaking in Welsh. Combined with my name, which is a tongue twister in itself. So the name of the company is Oriorwaith Jan Sarnowski, which means Jan Sarnowski's watchmaking. I've decided to go with a Welsh name, just like I told you sort of before the show, because this company was only ever meant to make watches for me. I never expected it to be marketing my watches or selling them, let alone having people on shows like yours pronounce them. So this is sort of why it is a little bit of a tongue twister.
Well, I wasn't going to attempt to pronounce it anyway, mate, because but I just wanted, this is the guy, just very quickly, James the Advisor. Not quite sure, but this is our watchmaker, James the Advisor, who's hopefully bringing out a watch very soon to show us. Yeah, so we've got our own watchmaker in our chat tonight, James the Advisor. Thanks for being here, James. It's much appreciated. Just a very quick, I just saw a quick question for you from Ray, another very, very dear friend of ours. Jan, are there many Welsh watchmakers?
So there are quite a few watchmakers in Wales. There's quite a few repair shops that I know of in Wales. There are also a couple other Welsh watch companies. But when I was creating this brand, I was sort of under the impression that I am the only Welsh watch brand. I haven't seen much of the others sort of advertising around. I'm not sure whether they're active still or not. I would assume they are. But when I came out with this idea, I was thinking that I'll be the first. Unfortunately, I'm not.
Just Di Pietro 75. Good to see you. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being here. So my question to you, Jan, and I would imagine you've been asked this 1,000 times. Where did it all start for you, my friend?
So my passion into watches has been pretty much lifelong. I've started collecting watches at the age of 13. It started with a little Polyot Soviet watch that I found at a car boot sale. My very mechanical granddad showed me how to repair it, bought me some books, and it sort of started there. I've kind of been buying and restoring watches since my teenage years, sort of stepping them up from the cheapest Soviet watches to slightly nicer watches, going through a whole range of a collection of pocket watches in between. And a couple of years ago, I decided to make a watch for myself. And that watch was only ever meant to be in 4 pieces, 2 in malachite and 2 in lapis lazuli, and one was meant to be for me and one was meant to be for my daughter, who was 1 at a time. And that was meant to be her present when she grows up, sort of a watch waiting in a safe for her that Dad made years before. And I showed this watch to a friend of mine who owns a watch company, Ratcliffe. His name is Tayyip, a kind of a very prominent person in the micro-run community. And Tayyip liked the watch and really encouraged me to sell it. So I decided to show it to some people on social media, and it all started there. Within 6 months' time, we've sold 170 pieces of my first watch. That I've assembled last year here in my workshop at home. We've sold another round of a lapis lazuli version of the Druid that looks a little bit like this.
Keep it there, mate.
Same concept, just with a different stone dial. And we've sold 150 of those in November. And I'm now on to designing a third watch. This watch I've designed from scratch myself, down to the last screw. The only part that I'm using in this watch that isn't made by me is the movement and the clasp. Everything else is of my design, including the bracelet, including the screws in the case, everything else. And that's been sort of my love project for the last year.
Wow. Just very quickly, Whole Milk is saying at this point, I think we'll see Tim G's face before James Advisor's watch. and another one as well from Whole Milk. Jan, any chance we could get Gareth Bale as a brand ambassador?
If you can sort it out for me, I would love
it. Guys, I'm just going to present, just bear with me. Sorry, let's get rid of that. I'm just going to present Jan's here. Just have a quick look. I can't actually, this Jan is this your... This is your second, isn't it? Your second?
Yes, this is my second watch. Yes, it's the watch that I've sort of designed from scratch with the intention of selling. So this was, the first watch that I designed as part of the company, not just for myself.
But this is not available at the moment?
It's not available at the moment. We're at the very final stages of prototyping. So I've just had the cases finished last week. You can see the picture there on the left. That's the first photos of the case being finished. I'm not quite happy with the finish yet, so it's gone back for refinishing, just so that we can get it spot on. I'm expecting the prototypes to be ready in the next couple of weeks, and I'll be offering them for sale. Wow.
Okay. But just very quickly, I've got to say, I showed this watch just briefly last week, give the guys a little bit of taster of what's to come this week. And I've got to say, this malachite, I think this particular, and I think every dial is different, isn't it, Jan?
Yes, that's with all of my watches. They're all using natural stones, so every dial is completely unique.
Right. And I've got to say as well, what I like about this watch, it's not just it really, I'm sorry to say, but it really gives me like a Breguet feel,
A huge compliment.
Honestly, I mean, and what I do really like is I love the way you've done your signature on the dial. I think, you look at a lot of watches and they're like in block capitals or it's just they're all big print and things. But I think this the way you've done your signature and Connery at the very bottom at 6 o'clock, I think is really, really helps to set this dial off. Although for me it really doesn't need that signature on it. I think the dial itself speaks for itself. It's an absolutely beautiful dial, and as I say to you, mate, congratulations and kudos to you. It's a beautiful.
Thank you very much. The dial was sort of, at the back of my mind, inspired by watchmakers like Breguet. The dial was meant to be inspired by pocket watches from the 19th century, sort of
Yeah.
my previous focus in my collection. The case I've had to order for this watch, this was not something that I could make myself at the quantities that I was making. This is why I'm sort of so excited about the new watch, where I could design it from scratch and actually, make everything myself like I want it to be. But this
Right.
case I found to be very reminiscent of a marriage watch, so like a conversion of a pocket watch into a wristwatch. And this is what sort of led me into this design, whilst using those malachite dials that I just found
Right.
extremely beautiful. And then obviously that spiraled down into a whole new hobby for me, and a whole new way of spending time, where I'm now in touch with mines. I'm getting stones that aren't normally used in jewelry. We're trying to slice them. We're trying to put them into dials. So it's become a big adventure, these stone dials.
Right. And could I know you did sort of like touch on it, but was this the watch that you actually you brought out for the celebration of your daughter's birth, or?
Yes, so this was. I'll show you the first watch. So this watch is a very tired prototype. I keep it on my desk. I very rarely wear it. This was the first watch that I've made, and that was meant to be one of the 4 watches that I've created, 2 for me and 2 for my daughter. Unfortunately, this watch was not engineering perfection. This watch, when it went through testing, had many dials, many cracks in the dial. There's been quite a few issues that obviously, when I wanted to sell the watch, I've had to resolve. But yes, this was the first watch, and this was the watch that I had in mind when I designed the dial, the hands, and everything else.
And the actual meaning of the Druid was the Druid in English, isn't it?
So I've had a slightly yes, it is the Druid, Iderwydd. I've had a slightly artistic approach to this. When I started designing the watch, obviously, for me as a collector, this was a completely new experience. And I decided for it to have a little bit of meaning for me, and it was meant to symbolize, first of all, my daughter's birth, and that was what it was celebrating. But the design itself reminded me a lot of kind of the Celtic vibe that you get in Wales. I think it was my wife, my fiance at the time, who said that the malachite reminds her a little bit of like green hills, sort of in the distance. And this was quite a big drive for me. So when I focused the watch, and when I wanted to make it so old school and so sort of elegant and sophisticated, I thought that a Druid, sort of a symbol of Wales, plays quite nicely with that.
Sorry, I just want to, because I can't actually, I want to get back to, let me just quickly, bear with me, sorry. I just want to bring this back up again, guys. I want to show you the actual back of this rotor, this rotor
so
here.
That's for my second watch.
Yeah, that's your second watch. But what I wanted to do, yeah, and if you don't mind, is that I'm just going to come back, guys. I'm just going to stop sharing that for a moment. I want to come back. But this, I'm going to go full screen because I can't find anything, but you sent me this. And this is the actual relic.
Yes.
Yeah, the Welsh relic of that actually design. Now, can I ask you, was it you that dug up this relic, or was it something that you found?
No, it was not. It was a local archaeology group, and it was a very happy coincidence because I was in about my 3rd rotor design at this point for the Scout. And to be honest with you, I didn't quite like any of them because of the lack of meaning. So everything in the design of my watch, I've tried to think through, and unfortunately the rotor is something that I couldn't make anything other than extraordinary, anything that hasn't been done before. And this just popped up on my Facebook feed. It was a local group of archaeologists. They dug it up about 5 or 6 miles from my house. And it's a Roman horse bridle mount. And the thing that sort of captivated me about this is that it has very strong Celtic features. It looks very Celtic, even though it is something that comes from the Roman times. It is clearly something that was made here, and you know, and carries the symbolism of the region with it. And obviously, the shape of it was perfect to do a rotor. It turned out to be a little bit of an engineering nightmare, as every idea like this turns out to be. But we got it working now, so I'm very glad.
Yeah, so I was very interested because this one is the automatic version, isn't it? But the actual this one is manual version.
Yes, that's it.
Wow.
So the Druid came out with the TY 3620 movement made by Seagull. I've been lucky enough to work directly with Seagull, where I get the movements directly from them, and they come with the appropriate quality control, they come with the appropriate warranty, and things like this. So I've been very lucky. The next watch will be based on a Miyota movement, a Miyota 9039.
9039. Yeah, I've
version.
just got your Instagram up. So on the
Yeah, it's
here.
the higher end, is the higher end sort of Miyota,
Right.
whereas the slightly slimmer movement. I'm also refinishing the bridges, just to make it a little bit more cohesive and a little bit different.
Right. Guys, I'm just going to quickly look at the chat to see if there's Phil, have you any questions for Jan?
I'm just listening in here, Steve, because this is the first I should have heard of Jan and his brand. So I'm just I'm taking it all in here, like so.
And so what we've seen so far, I mean, your honest opinion, what do you think?
I think it looks very good. Can we see the blue watch again there, Jan? Just a
Yeah,
bit,
Absolutely.
let
in
me
a bit
do-
more sort of detail, because I think one of the chaps.
I'll tell you what, that dial is unbelievable. I'll try and bring a better picture for you guys.
Do you know? Yeah, I think a photo would be better. My camera, unfortunately, here is
All
very
right.
poor.
Just bear with me, Jan. Just bear with
Oh,
me.
there
And
we go.
I'll try and buy.
I'm trying to catch an angle where it looks a little bit more flattering.
I'll try and bring up a better picture, my friend. So yeah, let's have a look. This is Jan's Instagram. This is Jan's Instagram, guys. So please go over and follow Jan. This is his Instagram, and these are the watches, guys. Obviously, the two we've shown, and the one that his wife done the daffodils, and it looks like it's took off.
Yes.
So, right, sorry, Phil, I'll get to you, mate. The blue, there we go. This one, yeah. So this, but you can't actually see it. But right across, it looks like right across the middle here, there's a gold fleck.
It's sort of a white line. It's made
Oh,
of
well,
calcite.
sorry. Okay.
It's an impurity in the lapis, and to be honest with you, I like, for this particular project, I liked the more impure lapis. For my next project, we're going to try and choose stones that are a bit more plain and don't have these inclusions. But these calcite inclusions in these with little speckles of gold, they're made of pyrite. It's not actually gold. It's an iron compound called pyrite. It adds a little bit of a night sky look to it. This is why I called it the Night Druid. This was sort of the inspiration behind it. And yeah, it just adds a little bit more flair to the lapis, makes it a little bit less uniform, a little bit more unique.
Yeah. And this is the alternative dial on your prototype now. So this is the blue dial?
This is the what you have there. This is the dial for my next watch, the Scout. There will be two versions, one in amethyst, that's more purple, and one in this lapis blue. But like I said, for this lapis, we're going to choose a slightly plainer looking stone, just because I think it suits the dial more. I think, you know, they're completely different projects, and as you can see on the sort of the zoomed out picture, there's much less white, there's much more just gold and blue.
This is maybe a better picture. You can see the white going through from 9 till 3 o'clock. So,
and if you go up a little bit on my profile, you'll be able to see, because we're now quite deep into manufacturing these dials, and I've got the factory to send me a picture just of some of the samples that they cut from the stones, just because, you know, some of them work, some of them don't. So we're kind of quite particular about verifying. So you can see there's some raw dials that have just been cut.
This one, yeah?
Yes. And these will be the dials that will go into some of those lapis watches that people have ordered. And like I said, we cut, with the malachite, we cut about 900 dials or 800 dials to cut to make the 170 watches, just because the stone itself is not expensive, and I'd rather try and go through the stone and try and find the right patterns. So at this point, the lapidary that I work with, he really knows what I'm about. So this was actually the first attempt, and I was really glad. So he got the brief exactly right. We're trying to get a little bit more of that calcite and a little bit less of a plain and blue and gold look.
So am I right in saying as well, Jan, that no two stones are the same in this color?
Absolutely not. Now you can see here that the stones are cut from the slice. So basically what we do is we form the stone into a cylinder. The cylinder is then sliced into quite thick slices, and they're then hand polished down into the thickness that they need to be by a lapidary. Now with these stones, obviously because they're sliced out of a cylinder, you will see a little bit of a continuity. So, for example, here you see the top two left ones clearly come from the same piece of lapis. The one below comes from the same piece of lapis as well, but you can see it features one line rather than two. But
Yeah.
if you look at them close up, every single one of them will be different. It would be
Right.
impossible to cut two of the same
Right.
slices.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. So, guys, I just need to just say a little bit about Jan. This is not his full-time job, actually. This is, at the moment, part-time. I believe I'm correct in saying that, Jan, you're a maths teacher in a secondary school?
Yes, I'm a secondary school maths teacher, still full-time. I own a couple of tuition businesses as well, and this is what I do to relax.
Wow. So you know what I'm saying is, Jan. I mean, once you obviously finish your schooling, which must take up obviously a lot of your time because of I assume you do a lot of marking as well with exams and things like that. So basically, you know, every spare minute of the day that you get goes into your watchmaking, I assume, obviously,
yes,
and then
absolutely.
you have to juggle it with the family, and so I don't suppose it's very easy for you.
Luckily, my wife was also now involved with the company. She helps me with the organizational part. So, you know, I always say that I just sit here and play with my toys, build watches, design new watches, and she does the actual work part, the spreadsheets and you know, the organizing of the orders and everything else. So it works really well in the family, actually. But yes, it does take up quite a lot of time. My community chat, you know, will be a testament to this. When I was assembling the first batch of watches, quite a lot of the watches were assembled, for example, at midnight, at 1 o'clock. You know, locking myself in a workshop for the whole weekend and just kind of, you know, hacking away. But it's something that I truly enjoy, and it's something that, as I keep telling my wife, even if this doesn't work out as a business, as long as I can afford it, I'm going to keep doing, because I'm having the time of my life.
Yeah. And listen, at the end of the day, it's your love, isn't it? So why shouldn't you carry on?
Absolutely. Yes. This has been, you know, the main interest that I've had in my life for so many years, that being able to pursue it like this is just a dream come true.
Yeah, Dean saying, Jan, give Stephen a detention. I hope I've not been that bad, Dean. I hope I've not been that bad. Just very quickly, guys, going to introduce Chili Badger. Good evening, Chili. Good to see you, mate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Oh, sorry, yeah, England are playing Latvia tonight. It looks like England are 1-0 up. So thanks for that, my friend. Good evening, all. Good evening, Giuseppe. Good to see you in the chat, my friend. Thank you for being here. And this is the guy whose platform we use. Jan is Tim Wright and friends. He's based in New York. He's actually starts his show straight after this one. So at 9 o'clock we sort of end until after this weekend, because our clocks go forward. So then Tim will then revert back to his normal time. So that would be 10 o'clock UK time, but 5 o'clock New York time. So, but this is the one and only Tim Wright, whose platform we use. But we're all, you know, we're all for Tim Wright. We're here to support Tim, and this is what it's all about. So, yeah, thanks for being in the chat, Tim. And don't forget, guys, at 9 o'clock, if you just want to please shoot over to and join Tim, it'd be much appreciated. So I'm going to carry on and ask Jan. So Jan, you say you was 13 when you started actually taking clocks or watches to pieces and delving into how they work, and you know, could you, as I say, I know you've quickly told you, so you know, I know it's been your passion, but was it at 13 that you really got interested, and when you started thinking, well, like, how do these watches work, you know?
Well, do you know what, I went all in, and I went all in just because of it sort of fitted my interest at the time. I was interested in mechanics. I was interested in you know, things that move about. My granddad always taught me about fixing cars, so this was the next step forward. Now, the first watch that I bought, I couldn't have possibly fixed myself as a 13-year-old. It was just due to its size. It was a Poliot Deluxe. A Soviet watch, a very cheap watch, but a very thin watch. So the movement is only a couple of millimeters thick. And the mainspring was broken, so I watched my granddad fix that. But when he saw my interest, he sort of started taking me to flea markets, giving me a bit of money. I started picking up pocket watches. Once again, loads of Soviet ones, but also loads of Swiss ones. and locking myself in a room with the set of screwdrivers and a loop that he got me, and hacking away. And many a beautiful movement were killed in the process. But eventually, eventually it started coming out, and just through drive and through interest, it started working. And eventually, when I started buying watches for myself, I usually had the rule, which I always laugh about, of buying a watch in the worst condition possible, and then trying to either find someone to help me restore it or do as much of it myself. And that's how it sort of spiraled down.
Yeah, can I ask you? I said you are a maths teacher. Does maths come into the equation when you're designing watches?
It does at the moment a little bit. So there are some basics. It does in my design, especially because I do a lot of my design on paper.
Okay.
So I draw like a true mathematician does, which is with a compass, a ruler, and a pencil, and nothing else. So a little bit of maths. I construct my watches more than draw them. But there's also quite a bit of maths, obviously, in the movement design and things like this, which I don't delve into. For now, the biggest bit of maths that I've been dealing with were sort of tolerances and things like this. So it helps to be mathematically literate. It definitely helps to have a little bit of a background in engineering and understand some bits. I don't think it's essential, though.
Yeah, I've got a question for you from Helgestrand. What are the wristwatches, brands, and watchmakers Jan admires? Very nice micro brand, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. So my biggest inspiration has always been George Daniels. I know it's sort of become a cliche to say in the industry, but he did really sort of bring all of that knowledge that has been around for a very long time together. I felt like he was the first one to bring it all together and actually put it to a use where he constructed everything from scratch himself. But I also have a lot of respect for designers, especially like Genta. So Genta's designs are something that I always look to, and something that I've had as my inspiration for some of the designs that I've done now. So I think it would be just like the question that you usually get, what's your favorite song? It's usually quite hard to name a favorite song. It would be quite hard to name my favorite, but they're definitely my two big inspirations that popped to my head first.
Just excuse me, Jan, because that was one of my questions. Where'd you get your inspiration from? So I'm just going to cross that one out. And,
well, do you know what? The inspiration isn't just connected with them. The inspiration comes from just my ideas as a collector. So what you see as the Scout, my latest watch, actually started out as a field watch. I started out wanting to make a field watch like everybody else. Showed it to my chats. The dial was meant to be a little bit more interesting than in a normal field watch, but it was still meant to serve the purpose of a military-looking watch. When I started drawing the case, I've realized that is completely not what I like. That I didn't think that I'll be able to bring out as much detail as I'd like in such a aesthetic sort of by design case, because military watches were always kind of a very robust sort of cheap to manufacture design, and that's sort of the idea behind it. And I wasn't sure whether I'll be able to portray enough of the qualities that I want in my watches within that design. So I decided to completely turn it around and go with what I had in my head, and this is what came out. So the inspiration is sort of very natural. It just appears from somewhere.
Yeah. Just I took this. Sorry, guys, I took this chat down because it blocked it. It took part of Jan off and while he was speaking, so I didn't want to be rude, but I just took it down so we could see Jan explain what he was saying. So it's Thomas Burnett, the Encyclopedia of Watches. Jan, are you going to continue making the Druid your first watch or not? If not, is it because of the trouble of obtaining seagull movements in small quantities now?
Now, I will continue to be making the Druid. I've heard of the Seagull difficulties, but I've heard of them focusing mostly around the ST19, the chronograph movement. I mean, I've ordered 200 movements from Seagull in November, and there was no issues around it. So as far as I know, Seagull, from when I was recently talking to them, has no problems to continue to supply me with those movements. So, it hasn't affected me so far. If it does affect me, that will be a whole nother story. But for now, I'll be making the Druid with different stone versions. So I'm kind of sticking very strictly with limiting the watches to a certain time, and then just not offering that version again.
Okay. And so at the moment, all that stone version, the Druid, they're all sold out. Jan?
Yes. So both.
But they're not available.
The original, yes. So both the original Malachite version with the numerals and the Lapis version have now been sold out, so they will not be available anymore. There will be some other malachite versions that I've modified a little bit. So there will be the painted one that I've showed you earlier. I'm also considering, by request of my chat, doing some sterile versions like this, where it's just my logo and just a second stand.
Wow.
So this is
Wow.
something that I've experimented with. So there will be some more malachite druid versions. They just won't be exactly the same as the original one, because I'd like to keep that exclusivity. I believe that watch shouldn't be reissued because the customers buying it weren't informed that it will be reissued. So I don't want to play anybody like this.
So just watch this space.
Absolutely.
And can I ask? Can I just? What was the price of those watches, Jan? If you don't mind me asking.
So the original Druid in malachite launched at £279, and the Lapis version, just because of this stone prices being slightly different, launched at £299.
Wow! What great value for money! Absolutely great value for money.
Thank you very much.
There's another question. Right? Would Jan ever consider starting a watch company?
Well, it sort of happened on its own.
It's materializing now, Tim. To be honest, it's unfortunately not as I say, not 100% at the moment. But once again, another thing. Watch this space. You never know. You never know. But as I say, I think you've got a fantastic brand there, and those stone watches and stone dials are absolutely amazing. Personally, I think you're on a winner. I can understand why they're all sold out, and I'm sure if you was to put them, bring them watches back on the market, you'd have no problem selling out again. So yeah, congratulations to you, mate. And and once again, if there's anything we can do with, if you've got a new watch coming out, you just let me know, and we'll have you on, and you can show it to your heart's content. And
well, thank you very much. Like I say, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's sort of still a little bit surreal to me, to be honest. It only became real when I saw the parts to make 170 watches appear on my doorstep, and I sort of went, right, I actually have to sit down and assemble these now. That's when reality hit in a little bit. But it was much better, even better than I expected. I loved every bit of it, and like I said, if this could be my job, I'd be over the moon.
So you've just actually got me to answer another question. So when you actually put these pieces together, how many people are there, or is it just you and your wife, or sorry, is it just you? It's just you.
Literally just me assembling the watches. And then my wife is kind enough to help me with the packing. So she takes the boxes, she folds them up, she packs the watches. I write a little personalized note with every watch that I build after I adjust them. So I normally tend to build them in batches. So I'll sit down, I'll build all the watches, I'll put them all together, then I'll sit down, I'll adjust them, just because it kind of clears my desk a little bit and it's easier to adjust them later. I'll write some personal notes and then hand over to my wife, who will pack them, and we send them
off. Right. Just quickly, Dean. Yes, mate. I am wearing a G-Shock tonight, my friend. Just got it out and do what, mate?
That's horrendous looking.
It's huge. It's just because it's big. Horrendous. Just show Jan your U-boat, mate. You've got it handy. Yeah, that's talking about horrendous.
Actually, don't, Steve. The big ones have been sold. They're gone.
Are they all gone? Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Gentlemen, I think I can beat you in ugly watches. Give me a second. I
no problem.
I'll top both of you. Maybe this.
I don't think. Hold on.
I think this is a bit of a topper, the Ploprof.
Oh.
So
wow.
This is quite a more of a weapon than a watch, really. This.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think this puts even a U-boat to shame in terms of weight. I'd be scared to even put it on a scale, to be honest.
We knew someone that had two of those, and
oh well, very impressive. I don't know if you can wear two at a time. I think that's a medical danger at that point.
I'll tell you what, Jan. If you put that on the wrist, you wouldn't need a diving weight, would you? That would take you straight to the seabed, wouldn't it?
No. You're not floating with that one, no.
No, you're definitely not. Definitely not. Guys, just very quickly, see if there's any. Have I missed any questions for Jan? I'd like to say, guys, Jan originates from Poland,
Yes.
and as I say, he resides now in North Wales. I'm not going to say where. I'm not going to dox him, but yeah, resides in North Wales. How long have you been in North Wales, Jan?
Well, I've been since I was 13, so it'll be 19
Oh,
years.
right.
this
Okay.
year.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
so I came over. The whole watch thing happened about 3 months after I arrived in this country. It was my first car boot sale, actually, where I found the watch. It cost me all of 50p, and that started it all.
I'll tell you what, Jan, if I took a watch to pieces, I could bet you bottom dollar if I put it all back, I'll end up with a screw. And I wonder, where's this screw go?
I still have the box of the watches that unfortunately have fallen to my learning when I was a teenager. There's a whole box of some really beautiful movements from Waltham and from Elgin. Unfortunately, fell victim to my learning. So it is what it is. You have to break some of them before you learn.
I'll tell you what, Jan, I took this to pieces, and this is no word of a lie. I took this to pieces, right? And I still didn't know how to change the battery in it. I've got all the equipment, I've got all the drivers, and I've got all the loops and everything. I had to YouTube it to see how to change the battery. So
you have to do so many to know. That's what it is.
Oh dear. The wrist chick, thank you for the question. It says, how many millimeters are your watches?
So the current watch, the Druid, is 41 millimeters in diameter. The next watch, I actually have a very kind of rough 3D printed model of this. I'll just hold them level so that you can see. It is a bit smaller. So this one will be 39 millimeters in diameter with a slightly smaller lug to lug of 45.
Wow. Thank you for that. And let's just take Jan off full screen. And Thomas Bennett again. Sorry. He's asking, Jan, you have a Celtic theme to the rotor of your second watch and a nature theme using stone dials. Do you have any other influences, inspirations that you would like to put into your timepieces?
Just like with these inspirations, I don't think I'd like to actually sit down and come up with one. I feel like it would make the whole design process a little bit more artificial and a little bit less enjoyable for me. Like with the previous watches, I think I'll just start with an idea and see where it takes me. And that, I think, will be the best way to go about this. The nature and the Welsh influences will stay, however, because this is sort of what I like at the moment. So it's definitely going to feature in more watches and might even become, the brand's main sort of recognition.
Okay, just bear with me. I'm just going to drop the link just in case. Actually, Thomas Bennett has got the link, but I'll drop the link, guys. I'll drop the link. If anybody wants to join us and has got any questions for Jan, please feel free. As I say, and I've always said it, if you don't want to be seen, just have your camera switched off, but obviously leave your mic on. But no, I did drop Thomas the link if he was available, but there's no pressure on anybody to join, guys, honestly. But if you did want to jump on, please feel free, and you'll be more than welcome. So any questions, Red, can you think of? I think I've asked Jan everything I've got written down. I don't know if there's anything else I can, and Jan's explained most of it. And the only thing I was going to ask then,
the Blue Watch immediately reminds me of one of the Shop Pack watches. Do you remember the blue Shop Pack watch that I was going to buy one time, Steve?
Oh,
do you remember that?
Let me
I'm very interested to see now.
Let's have a look. Which one would it be, do you think, mate? Do you know?
I'm just trying to remember.
I'll tell you. Let me go back on Jan's Instagram, and let's see if you can see
here.
Well, let me go back up to the top. No, this is at the top. I'll just go back down.
Get it here, Steve.
No bells.
Nice.
No.
I'm going to try and share this here with you. So
oh, okay. Sorry, let me come back. I'll come back to you.
Let me see if I can
just while you're doing that, there's quickly, there was a Hildestrand again. Jan, would you consider an Onyx dial for a more formal watch?
Absolutely. I have Onyx very high up on my list. I just need to think of a watch design which would suit a toned down dial like this. I like colors. I know not everybody does, so I will be bringing some watches that that feature a bit less of a vibrant dial. For now, I'm trying to stick with the vibrant ones, but there will be some versions in much more subdued colors. Onyx in black. There'll also be some browns and some creams coming in, if I can slice them. So they're on the way to me from the mine, just to see whether I can slice them thin enough and they'll be resilient enough to put in a watch.
So this is the one, Red?
That's the one that's what came to mind as soon as I seen the blue watch. So it was that particular one.
Yeah.
I've always liked that Chapac one, but I must say that I really do like that blue dial of yours. It's really, really nice, and it does remind me slightly of that.
Well, Chapek movements are something that I've read in the books that my granddad bought me. Chapek was Polish and is featured quite prominently in some of the literature. But it's a big compliment to be compared to such a high echelon watch as this one, with this little creation of mine. So thank you very much. I think we did kind of start from the same starting point as the designers of Chapek, because I know they also tried to bring in some of his early work in creating in pocket watches, and I know his pocket watches often had the signature sort of that Daniels always also used, where the sub dials are sort of at 4 and 7. So yeah, I think we started at the same starting point. It's just that they used more Chapek influence, and I sort of created my own.
Wow. A couple of weeks ago, Jan, we was at the watch the watch and clockmakers show in Victoria in London, and Roger Smith was there. And as you know, Roger Smith was the apprentice to George Daniels, and he had obviously I think 3 of his watches on show, and you can see George Daniels in his watches. You can see, you could see the inspiration he gets from George Daniels. So I can completely understand where you're coming from. As you saw our intro, my influence is Konstantin Chaikin. He's obviously a Russian
Yes.
watchmaker, and I just think that was the actual intro that we're using is what he's working on. It's called the Levitus. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I just think he just pushes the boundary of watchmaking, and I love everything he does. So for me,
I'm with you on that one. He is amazing, and the ideas he has, and the execution of those ideas. Because it's not just about having the way that they're executed is just so beautiful that I'm completely with you on that one.
And the craftsmanship, and as I say, I don't know, as I say, where he gets his inspiration from, but absolutely amazing.
I want to know as well. I would definitely like to know.
I'll tell you what, just very quickly, Jan. I don't know if you heard. Have you heard of a watchmaker called Derek Pratt?
Yes.
Right, and apparently, when I was reading about Derek Pratt, they held Derek Pratt on the same sort of high esteem as what George Daniels was, but not. George Daniels was sort of more high profile, but Derek Pratt was stayed under the radar. But when I was researching Derek Pratt, I was quite surprised. He actually, I don't know if he was born not far from where I live, or he actually lived not far from where I live, but not for very long. But he moved. But guys, if you ever get the chance to Google Derek Pratt, he's a very, very prominent watchmaker as well. But you may or may not have heard of him. But apparently, was held in the same esteem as what George Daniel was, but not on.
I seem to have an oval-shaped pocket watch in my mind when I think of Derek Pratt. Beautifully brioche and beautifully finished watch. When it comes to kind of comparing people like this, I always find it difficult because you're comparing absolute upper echelon of masters in the craft, and to say that Mr. Daniels is better than Mr. Pratt at one thing or the other is to me is just completely at this level completely alien, because to me they are both sort of at the god level of watchmaking where I don't think that there needs to be any judgment passed. It is just it sort of.
Yeah. Jan, I just want to introduce you to Design Atelier. Late but greetings from Aruba. That's Jason DaCosta of Flux Watches, I believe. Great to see you, Jason. As I say, thank you for introducing me to that WhatsApp group. It's much appreciated. And that's how we got Jan onto our show tonight. And as I say, guys, it really is much appreciated to Jan for giving up his time. Albeit for the hour, but it really is much appreciated. And as I said to you, and I've said to you, Jan Kuya for that, Jan. And that's just thank you in Polish, guys. So that's all I know. So
well, I'm also very thankful, but at the same time, this is the perfect sort of conversation. I could have this conversation for hours on end with you, just talking about watches, not just my watches, but all the other watches, because I'm so interested in it.
Yeah. Jan, the watches we have seen so far seem to be quite dress categorized. Have you considered have you considered any other complications as such chronographs, pointer dates, etc., or is it too hard to fit stone in?
I don't think the stone would pose a problem, really. When you want to have, if you wanted to make stone hands or something like this, when the stone would be unsupported and very thin, I think that could be difficulty. But fitting a stone dial, it could be fitted to any watch pretty much. You can cut a hole as big in it as you want. There aren't many problems. Some stones are better than others. Some stones are impossible to work with. But there's a good chunk of gemstones that you can actually slice very thin, and there isn't any issues with that. I am considering some complications, but I also would like them to be a little bit, I'd like them to fit with my idea of what the watches are. So how I work is I have my little book. And my little book is basically my book of projects, and in that book I've got 7 or 8 future watch projects that I've sort of come up with. And as I sit down in the evening, I'll think about them and I develop them sort of all at once. And within the case of the Scout, that was the one that stood out. That was the one that I just sort of wanted to focus on and kind of looked best in my head. So that's how I go about this. Now there are a couple of chronographs in there. There's a diving watch. That's sort of I have at the back of my mind, but for now I'm not kind of directing into getting a particular complication or anything like this. I'd like them to still come out organically like they are, and see what comes out. Just because I think that's the way that I can actually deliver the nicest watches.
Okay, I'm just going to bring up this chat, guys, and this is for Design Atelier. Stone thickness can fall on the thick side. The watch case needs to be designed to have room for those ahead of time. So
absolutely,
we are talking.
It's very difficult to use a pre-manufactured case with a stone dial. In most cases, it is impossible just because of the spacing between the hands and the glass. So if you think of stone dials are usually constructed as a sandwich. So you have a very thin layer of stone that's glued onto like a stable base, usually made out of brass or some other metal. And what this creates is this sort of pushes the dial a little bit into the space where the hands reside. And this is why if you have a watch that's been designed well, and there isn't loads of space sort of left inside just because of bad design, it's not possible to fit a stone dial because of the thickness. Now, the case that I've designed obviously has accounted for that. I've also had a couple of the dial itself for the new watch is crazy because it's many parts from different materials trying to create the sort of the reflection that I want. So it's definitely possible, and you can put a stone dial into any watch as long as you design the case or you're lucky enough to find one that has a bit of space in it.
How many sort of mishaps did you have with the stone dials, Jan?
Do you know what?
Until you sort of got it right.
More mishaps than haps at the beginning, to be honest with you. I'm just looking at this pile. This is just a very small pile of dials that I've kind of given my wife to try paint on, and I've got a box of these. So I think I've got about 60 dials that are. They look perfect to anybody, but have a tiny scratch somewhere or a tiny misprint or things like this, because printing on stone was another challenge that we faced. I never thought that would be an issue, but print doesn't want to stick to stone as well as it does.
Right. Okay.
So there's been some experimenting with different paints, trying to get the paint to stick, trying to make sure that it has also a nice texture, because as you know, being watch collectors, one print on one watch is not the same as another. There's a nice sort of kind of raised print that I wanted to go for, so that took a bit of doing. There's been a lot of mishaps, and the mishaps luckily weren't with customers, they were in prototyping stages. But you know, with things like supply chain and things like this at the start, where the dials were a little bit delayed, or they arrived, they weren't of the right quality, so I didn't want to put them into watches, so I ended up having to buy more and send some, and eventually just go, do you know what, let's leave these, let's just get new ones just to get them sent out quickly. So it was all very intense at the start, with the mishaps, but we seem to have everything worked out with the stones that we're working with at the moment. Obviously, with the new stones, as I said, I'm sort of getting into the areas where I'm working with stones that haven't really been used into jewelry. I'm working with a couple of stones that haven't really been named, and you know, they don't really have a name. They just sort of exist in a place somewhere in the world where you can find them. So with those, there'll be a bit more difficulty in trying to slice them thinly, trying to see how they behave, trying to see how they react to temperatures. But that's all part of the adventure, and that's all part of my little science project that I'm enjoying a lot.
Yeah. And the thing was as well, and I noticed, you know, obviously you have to drill these for the hands,
Yes.
and for the subdial. Was that complicated? Did you have did they crack?
That's not a very complicated procedure, just because of the lapidary that I work with.
Right.
So I work with a lapidary who didn't have has a lot of experience with stone, but had no experience with watch dials. So it was a case of trying to get him to, you know, to get down to that thickness and see what he can do. Drilling is not a problem. And when you're nowadays with the technology that you have, you can drill a hole as big or as small as you want, pretty much into the stone, obviously within, you know, within reason. And it doesn't pose many issues. The bigger issue is, like I said, the printing, and then the stone itself being mounted in the watch. Some of the watches that I've seen with stone dials have slightly different systems of mounting them, where it's a little bit more prone to cracking. So that was my main issue, actually, that the dials simply cracked. So I would put the watch together. I would have dial version 6, 7, God knows, put into a watch. It would look great. And after 3 days, there's a big crack going through the middle. And that's sort of that was the end of the story. So we had to experiment a lot with the thickness of the stone. Had to experiment a little bit with the adhesive to use. But eventually, we came to a point where I feel quite confident dropping the watch, and the stone seems to be the last thing to go.
And the other thing I was going to ask you was, you were saying you was having trouble with perhaps your signature sticking to the dial. How did you overcome that? Was that
you know, through like a lot of this, because it's been such a learning curve for me. It was working with people who work in dial printing. And trying to ask them, and then, you know, them trying to work out, okay, this is a little bit like glass, but it isn't quite like glass, because even though it's polished, it is still slightly porous. The malachite was interesting because it has slightly different textures in different places. So as you see some of the bands in the malachite, you can have slightly different textures even after they are polished, and this makes paint stick better to some areas of the dial better than others. So that was another bit that we experimented with, but we now got to the point where, you know, the dial printing really isn't an issue, and I've worked it out.
Right. No. Just a little light note here, Jan. Jan, are you available to tour with the Welsh Rugby in the summer? They need players.
I think they would need much higher insurance and an ambulance following me behind on the pitch if I was to run and play rugby. I think that would be a liability.
Guys, have you? We're nearly out of time. We've just got about literally 5 minutes. Can you? Any more questions? I'm absolutely running out of questions to ask Jan. It's been absolutely amazing. I hope you agree with that. I mean, he's been an absolute fantastic guest, and to have an insight into a watchmaker, and to like get it firsthand to how they sort of think, and even get where they get their inspirations from is just amazing as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, thank you, Elder Strand. He's just saying great show, guys. Yeah, thank you for that. But yeah, absolutely amazing. And I can't, as I say, Jan, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to, you know, jump on our stream and you know, give us your insight into watchmaking. One Day Retro, good friend of the show. Where does Jan see himself business in 5 years?
That's actually a great question, because it's something that I haven't mentioned. I'm hoping to keep this line of watches, sort of very reasonably priced watches, very good value for money watches, going. Still designing the watches like I am, but I'm also hoping to go more into sort of one-off pieces. So with every watch, I'm actually expanding my workshop. So you know, I don't want to just sort of sit on my laurels and get someone else to put my watches together and call it a day. I will still be involved with putting together every one of the watches from this line that's available now. I feel like them having my name on them is enough for me to actually, you know, actually check everyone and actually build everyone if I can, for as long as I can. But then I would like to also open a second part where I build watches more to order. Or if I have a more artistic vision that would require a little bit more funds and wouldn't be something that I'd like to make, you know, multiple of, just to make some watches more by hand. So I was thinking of some different techniques with hand engraving and with combining that with laser engraving, also cutting stones into various shapes and trying to approach it from that standpoint and show my customers, you know, my journey through it, my journey of kind of picking it all up, so kind of learning it as I go and what comes out.
Sorry, Jason. I'm Jay. I'm Jan. I'm just showing Jason Design Atelier. He's missed the actual your design, so I'm just basically just going through your designs, and these are Jan's designs. Jason, Design Atelier. This is the Roi David, the Druid, his first watch that's completely sold out. And this particular one, this is the prototype. This is the rotor of the prototype that he's got for his second watch. And sorry guys, I'm just going to just for Design Atelier's information. This was a watch that, if you look, without the daffodils, is the Druid. But Jan got his wife to do a bit of artistry on the dial, and this is what I come up with, the Welsh national flower, the daffodil, and he's had a lot of interest in this one. Sorry, I'm just for Jason Design, and these are the stone dials that he's got for the Druid, but in blue. As you can see, all the different cuts. Yeah, and this is the actual watch itself, but in blue. Really, really nice. And as I say, mate, I can completely understand why you sold out. I really do. I think this was an absolute winner as far as I'm concerned. And the other thing I was going to ask you as well, Jan, just before we wrap up, you know, was the idea to just make, say, 300 watches and then call it a day because you didn't want to flood the market with that particular watch? Or because you know, I think if you'd have carried on, the more you made, the more you would have sold. But was there a cut-off point that you didn't really want to make and move on to another design?
It wasn't a cut-off point in terms of the numbers, but as a collector myself, it's something that I always enjoyed, and it's something that was usually reserved to sort of higher higher price watches. And like you say, you know, the Green Druid itself, we would have sold many more if we kept selling them. They would still be selling.
Yeah.
But I felt that offering my customers, the people who have trusted me to make their watch without having ever seen anything else that I made, I figured that I wanted to do that for them. And I know that now Druids are selling on the second-hand market for more than the retail price. And this was sort of, you know, at the back of my mind, a little bit of a hope that I could give back to my customers that they've trusted me in that way. And I'd like to keep doing this, to be honest. The two watches that you see with the Scout, the Amethyst and the Lapis version, will also be limited like this. So they'll be limited to a certain time where that edition will close, and those stones in that watch won't be offered again. Just to once again, you know, thank the people for their trust.
Yeah. And the thing is, you'll find that the reason why they're going for more, Jan, because they're limited editions. So, you know, when you say they're not likely to be made anymore, people clamber to get hold of one of these watches because they've missed out for the first batch. So
there is definitely an aspect of this, and you know, I would be lying if I said it didn't help my business along. This sort of this fear of missing out, but the main reason for doing this would be to try and to try and create this very limited, 170 or 150 pieces. They are very limited watches, at a normal price point, at a price point that would be achievable for someone like me, who's just your normal run of the mill maths teacher, and just wants a nice watch.
And could I just quickly ask you, Jan, before we wrap up, guys, what was for the latecomers, what the prices of the Druid?
So the Druid originally launched at £279 for the original green version. The blue version launched for £299. Both of them are sold out. Now the hand-painted Druid will launch for slightly more. We haven't really settled on a price yet. And the Scout, my new project that you've seen, the one with the amethyst and the lapis dial, will launch for around $500, £400. I'm waiting on the final prototypes just to make sure that I'm happy with the design as they are, just to see whether I need to, put a little bit more into the production, raise the price a little bit, make it nicer. Because at the end of the day, my focus is not on quantity, but it's on quality. So I'm waiting for the prototypes to finally confirm the price for that, but it will be around £400 on the bracelet with all the bells and whistles. Right.
Guys, I am going to wrap it up, but before I go, I need to just a couple of super chats there. C Nord, €10. Great show. Thanks for the insight, Jan. Much appreciated, C Nord. Thank you for your great support tonight. And the other super chat I believe, was from Thomas Burnett, which was £1, and it says, "Thank you, Jan. Very insightful. Good luck." Thank you for that, Thomas. Much appreciated. Yes. So it's for me to say to Jan Dziękuję once again for joining us tonight, Jan, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
I hope the chat appreciated everything we spoke about and Jan's input into tonight's show, guys. And most of all, I want to thank you all for being in the chat, because as I said to you, but I'll always say it, without you, we haven't got a show. So once again, guys, everyone in the chat, thank you so much for joining us on this Monday evening. I hope you can join us. I hope you can join us next week, next Monday, for another watch show. We'll talk a little bit about watches, and I'll show some watches from some of these micro brands, from some of these watchmakers, to give these guys a platform and a shout out for the work they do behind the scenes, to bring these beautiful watches. So guys, thank you for joining us. Phil, much appreciated. Jan, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you next Monday, hopefully. God bless, and we'll see you next Monday. Thank you so much for being here. Good night, guys. Oh, very quickly, don't forget to go and join Tim Wright, who's starting his stream right now. Take care, guys. Good night. God bless. Thank you.